Hi everyone, Alva Psych here. I'm going to do part two of my notes on The Body Keeps the Score. This is for informational purposes only. If you didn't see part one, there were a lot of bullet points that I'm going through, so it's just going to be a lot of information. Maybe it'll be a little bit disjointed, but I just want to get this information out there for you, and you can do your own in terms of trying to synthesize it. And of course, reading the book is going to, I think things will make a lot more sense, but this might be kind of like a little Cliff's Notes version, at least to kind of prepare you for the book. And again, there's some things that as I look at my notes, a couple of things that maybe I'm going to present that I don't necessarily agree with, but that's okay. I'm just going to present my notes here for the most part. Okay, so here we go. Bullet points. Infants who live in secure relationships learn to communicate not only their frustrations and distress, but also their emerging selves, their interests, preferences, and goals. Receiving a sympathetic response cushions infants and adults against extreme levels of frightened arousal. But if your caregiver ignores your needs or resent your very existence, you learn to anticipate rejection and withdrawal. You cope as well as you can by blocking out, your mother's hostility or neglect and act as if it doesn't matter. But your body is likely to remain in a state of high alert, prepared to ward off blows, deprivation, or abandonment. Dissociation means simultaneously knowing and not knowing. People may dissociate during times of abuse. Erasing awareness and cultivating denial are often essential to survival, but the price is that you lose track of who you are, of what you are feeling, and of what and whom you can trust. Most people feel ashamed about the traumas they have experienced. 81% of patients diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD, at Cambridge Hospital reported severe histories of child abuse and or neglect, usually before age 7. Studies showed that having a history of childhood sexual and physical abuse was a strong predictor of repeated suicide attempts and self-cutting. Some reports of most morbidly obese patients had been sexually abused as children. The book references an ACE study by Ferliti, the adverse childhood experiences. The reports from 1998, talks about abuse and then the risk factors that are like leading causes. The risk factors in adults. Then going back to the abuse when they were children, go ahead and find that online. It's an interesting read. Research has swept away the simple idea that having a particular gene produces a particular result. It turns out that many genes work together to influence a single outcome. So genes are not fixed. Okay, life events can actually trigger biochemical messages that turn them on or off by attaching methyl groups, a cluster of carbon and hydrogen atoms, to the outside of the gene, making it more or less sensitive to messages from the body. Again, I don't understand the chemical part of it, but I understand the outcome of it. Now, rat pups that are intensively licked by their mothers are braver and produce lower levels of stress hormones under stress than rats whose mothers are less attentive. Okay, wow. In monkeys, early experiences such have as much impact on biology as heredity does. There's some information from, I don't know if I'm saying the name right, Sroufe, S-R-O-U-F-E, And then the author of a study, Sroff, says resiliency may be predicted by how lovable mothers rated their kids at age 2. And again, I'll let you look that up. DSM-5 lacks reliability. That's as mentioned in the book. The imprints of traumatic experiences may be experienced in fragmented sensory and emotional traces. Lack of verbal memory in trauma victims may cause them to act it out. Does repressed memory exist? It's a debate. In order to regain control over yourself, you need to revisit the trauma. Now, again, that's questionable as far as I'm concerned. You can read Eric Gentry's book and see what he says about that. But anyway, this is in The Body Keeps the Score. First, find ways to cope with feeling overwhelmed by the sensations and emotions associated with the past. Contrast with the rational brain, which expresses itself in thoughts. The emotional brain manifests itself in physical reactions, gut-wrenching sensations, heart pounding, breathing becoming fast and shallow, things like that. Understanding why you feel a certain way does not change how you feel. Okay, that goes back to Freud, actually, as we found out. But it can keep you from surrendering to intense reactions. 80% of the fibers of the vagus nerve, which connects the brain with many internal organs, are afferent. That is, they run from the body into the brain. This means that we can directly train our arousal system by the way we breathe, chant, and move. Okay. Learning how to breathe calmly and remaining in a state of relative physical relaxation, even while accessing painful and horrifying memories, is an essential tool for recovery. And I think most people would go along with that. I think Eric Gentry talks about that. It's kind of like this, what is it, a Jacobian sort of thought where you can't be anxious and relaxed at the same time. So if you're thinking about something that would cause anxiety, but you relax yourself, because you're not going to be anxious when you think about what used to be causing you anxiety. Okay. Let's see, where am I in my notes? Okay. Simply noticing our anxiety immediately helps us shift our perspective and opens up new options other than our automatic habitual reactions. Practicing mindfulness calms down the sympathetic nervous system so that you are less likely to be thrown into fight or flight. Having a good support network constitutes the single most important protection against becoming traumatized. Safety and terror are incompatible. Child abuse, molestation, and domestic violence all are inflicted by people who are supposed to love you, and that knocks out the most important protection against being traumatized, being sheltered by people you love. Okay. There's so much here that, all these little points can actually be their own separate little video and paper and everything. Okay, the most natural way that we humans calm down our distress is by being touched, hugged, and rocked. And if you're alone and don't have anybody to help you, you can get your own little rocking chair, and you can do a self-hug or grab a nice big pillow, and you can hug that pillow, and it helps. Flooding has been studied as a PTSD treatment. People are asked to focus their attention on the traumatic material. Up to 100 minutes of flooding is required before decreases in anxiety are reported, and it sometimes helps with anxiety and fear, but not guilt or complex emotions. And my thought is, if you're going to get somebody to sit there for 100 minutes, well, good luck. Okay, that could be one of the drawbacks there. Now, PTSD patients show some improvement with CBT, but rarely recover completely. Medications that target the autonomic nervous system, like propranolol, if I'm saying that right. I know that a lot of times performers, like if you're playing the piano on stage, they'll take that propranolol, Propranolol, or clonidine to help decrease hyperarousal. It helps like with fine motor shakiness or something like that. So that's why sometimes performers like piano players will take that. Risperidol and Seroquel help calm, but also block the dopamine system, which functions as the engine of pleasure and motivation. Okay, pros and cons of taking it. When patients write about their deepest fears, their handwriting often becomes more childlike. Interesting. EMDR is a treatment approved by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Yoga, bottom-up regulation. I think I talked about that in part one, or there was some sort of alluding to it. Yoga helps activate critical brain structures involved in self-regulation. Many problems that are classified as psychiatric problems, including panic attacks, as well as most self-destructive behaviors, started out as strategies for self-protection. Okay, pushing away can be highly adaptive in the short run. Okay, in the short run. Finally, into my notes here. Mindfulness increases activation of the medial prefrontal cortex and decreases activation of structures such as the amygdala. Okay, and that is it. A lot of bullet points. I know it's a little disjointed, but it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect if you read The Body Keeps the Score, and I found it to be a real good read. It's a long read. I broke it up into several, days of reading, but the information was very interesting, and I hope my notes help. And that is it. Thanks.